Good evening. Good evening. My first task is to provide a quick contextual background to this evening's event of assessing the 2011 recognition by the United Nations. The United Nations General Assembly Resolution 64-169 proclaimed 2011 International Year for People of African Descent, with a view to strengthening national actions and regional and international cooperation for the benefit of people of African descent in relationship to full enjoyment of economic, cultural, social, civil, and political rights, as well as with respect to their participation and integration in all political, economic, social, and cultural aspects of society, and for the promotion of a greater knowledge of and respect for diverse heritage and culture. How did you feel when you first heard about this? Were you elated? Were you suspicious? Just how did you engage this?
Last year, when all the proclamation was done, which is great. I think it's important that people continue to focus on our rights and our protection. But at the same time, I believe that it's about time that they move a step further. I mean, we've done a lot of proclamation, we've written a lot of documents, there have been a lot of studies about us. Now, we need to do something more concretely in terms of protect the rights of African descendants. What are those steps that need to be taken? And today, for example, I met with a group of Garifonas. They are visiting the United States, and they need legal assistance, they need funding, they need to be protected from not being removed from their land, because we need to eat. We need technology, we need education, we need to be at the same level as everyone else.
So in your work, your organizational work, your personal work, did you look closely at these categories and think about what you were doing and how it intersected these categories and what may be the implications of assessing this year going forward? Maybe we need to find these expert committees. Maybe we need to find this committee of people who are proposing a decade from 2013. Or did this just give a sort of amplification to what you were already doing? So were there specific connections to the programs and or the people at the United Nations in your experience?
Well, in our experience, we continue to do what we do. We were very grassroots. Our intention is to continue to work with the people at the base. We are, like I said, very happy that the United Nations is concerned and made a proclamation. But if we continue to do what we always do, working with the people, making sure that our young people know who they are, and feel proud about the heritage and about being African descendant. That's, I'm a mother of 3 black women, Dominican and Puerto Rican. And we have situations with our young people. Most of our young Latinas and Latinos, they identify themselves more with African American than with the other black Latinos, as you know. So we have situations in our own community that we have to resolve. So even though I'm very aware and was very aware of the proclamation, to me it was the continuation of what we do, and in a bigger way, because it's recognizing by an institution like the UN that we need to be recognized at a certain level. So it definitely helped give us more visibility, but as it happened to us, the National Dominican Women Caucus, and as a person, we simply continue to do what we do.
I now want to ask each of you to talk more about how the amplification of what you've been doing through this resolution has increased or enhanced or even created some issues or some debates with respect to the connection of Afro-Latinos in the United States to transnational communities, particularly in Latin America.
I consider the issue of public policy as a national issue. I mean, there are a lot of public policy that affect us here, in Latin America. Therefore, continue to develop and be part of the group that developed those public policies. If you look at, let's say, our brothers and sisters in El Chocó in Colombia, we don't have representation of public policy. If we go to the Garífonas, I don't know, but we don't have enough representation when it comes to public policy that affecting us. When we go to San Andres, we can go the entire coast of Latin America, which is basically Afro-descendant, and you will see that when you go to the capital city, when you go to Bogotá, or any of the capital, you're going to see very few of us that are making the public policy. So this is a transnational issue. When we go to DC and speak to the Congressional Black Caucus, we have done a tremendous job, including Afro-descendants, every year in the conferences. When we go and talk to them, and they have the influence. When they come and talk to the president of those countries, when policymakers come from Latin America to speak to the delegation in DC. So that's where I see the transnational commission.
So what future projects do you think should emerge with some more specificity perhaps than we've talked about? Michael gave a general strategic orientation. And perhaps an easy way to do this is, what are projects that you are doing that you think should be amplified, connected to people here and in the audience and at this panel, but also connected in these transnational, these trans-regional fora?
Well, I think that the year the Afro-descendant already established a platform for building an infrastructure to dismantle racism, institutionalized racism. And we had a conversation. I mean, this day, 2012, we go to any Latin American country and we continue to see how institutions systematically still discriminate against Black people. So this is a concrete action that we can do. You know, we have to boycott those places that don't have people like us working on those places. That's a concrete action. If you go to any other hotel in Latin America, you don't see Black people working there in the front desk, everybody's in the kitchen, don't stay there. Pick up and go. That's concretely. Anywhere you go. Ask how many doctors, how many nurses, how many lawyers do we have? Black. They have graduated from our universities that are funded by the state. That's concrete. The same thing here. The same thing here. If you walk into a place, you don't see any people, a person of color. I personally don't go to any movie that I don't see people like us, and the producer is not a person like us. I do not give my money to people who don't support our people. So this is a small action, but if me and my 10 family do it, we save some money at the end of the year. That's very concrete. And this is the kind of thing that we have to raise. You know, I just recently went to Cuba, and I have to say I was very disappointed after 50 years of a revolution. And let me tell you, there are so many positive things in Cuba, but racism still exists, institutionalized. And I consider myself a supporter of the revolution, but I'm also Black, I'm also a woman. So when I see this kind of discrimination as a woman of color, we have to talk about it. And there are very simple things that we can do, that it doesn't cost anything. And we're just talking to our own family. We can do something. We can make some changes.
It's already happening in New York, though, as well. There are curriculums that are there's curricula that's being written across New York to address Afro-Latinidad, to also address people of African descent, and try to also incorporate it into the Common Core standards that are coming out pretty recently. The issues that are coming up is that, you know, schools can choose to adopt that and schools can choose not to. And you have to have teachers, administrators, and policy advocates saying, no, this is absolutely essential. And the schools that have already adopted it, you see, I mean, I've overheard kids say things like, a girl maybe say something in Wolof, and a Dominican student saying something like, well, what is she speaking? And then another Dominican student saying something like, our ancestors may have spoken that language. Like, what are you saying? You know, you can't, like, saying things like that because the curriculum is so strategic. And talking about the comment that was said before about Cuba, right, we know that definitely racism exists in Cuba and is still an ongoing problem. But if you ask a blonde-haired, blue-eyed child in Cuba, tell me about African ancestry in Cuba. Tell me about how this culture has been tremendously affected, or tell me how your culture has been tremendously affected by people of African descent. They are able to tell you, and part of that is there's a very strategic curriculum initiative within Cuban education that could improve and has a long way to go. But there, if you sit in a 4th grade Cuban classroom, which I have, when you turn, to page 20 in the history textbook, you see a very strategic. Being Cuban is definitely being culturally African, and being part of Cuban identity is having this African ancestry. And we're at a pivotal moment within American education where many states have adopted Common Core standards, and many states are beginning to transform curricula, and this is the time that we need to definitely address policy and have advocacy. We need to say, this is absolutely essential. It's not only for someone who is Black and in Harlem, it's for someone who is across the United States needs to know. Part of being American is understanding this history. It's understanding what being Garifuna is, etc.
In terms of the school system, first let's keep our school open. In New York City, right now we have a situation where I say, if I have any child, thank God my kids are grown, but every parent should be out on the street, occupy the school. I mean, how many schools had this current mayor closed? Exactly. And it's no respect. In Brooklyn, there were over 2,000 parents protesting. It was nothing. They already had, it was a done deal. Why? Because 80% of the kids in school are Black and Latino in New York City. So unfortunately, they are counting that we are not going to go out and do anything about it. So, but we need, the key here is organize, organize, organize. We can talk about curriculum, we can talk about the teachers. If we don't have the places, I mean, it's incredible that a kid at 6 o'clock in the morning take a bus to go across town to a school, 1st grade. We also have to understand that Head Start programs are the key. If our kids don't have pre-kindergarten education, they're not going to make it to 5th grade. So they're never going to make it to college. So we have to really go back to our community, and we have to make sure that our schools at least are open. And this is a very important year. It's an election year coming up. So we have to demand to all those people who always come every 4 years and knock on our door, who always come every 2 years knock on our door, what is it that they're going to do? And we have to hold them accountable.
And I just want to know, the reality of the situation is that the majority of our people are out on the street or in prison. So when you talk about attacking the school district, what are we doing to attack the kids on the street and attack the kids that are in prison?
Well, I just want to address the young man's concern. We have to have a difficult conversation about our young people in prison and other issues that we're not comfortable talking about it. And I'm very happy that you brought that issue. We continue to have these conversations that are comfortable. But we have to have those difficult conversations because those are our brothers and sisters. They are incarcerated, many of them, for no reason, just for the simple reason of being Black.